Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the only waste here is the waste of our time with legislation of this nature. I realize
Gentlemen would be free to yield back then.
I realize that IRS persecution of the Tea Party is part of the great pantheon of mythology of the Republican Party. And maybe that is the result of recent weeks where we've had the Republican leadership expressing concerns it was being persecuted by the Tea Party with demands for government shutdowns, and the Tea Party was concerned it was being persecuted by the Republican leadership by the possibility of some sensible bipartisan immigration reform. And one thing the two can agree on, a unifying principle, is that there's never a bad time to not attack tax collectors, tax collection, and tax levels. It is also an article of faith that there's never a bad time to encourage more secret money in politics. It's the kind of undisclosed, hidden money where corporate interests can come in and engage in character assassination without having any responsibility for it, operating under general names that do not attribute the attacks on them. And we've seen more and more of this hidden corporate money pouring in and polluting our election process. Certainly, I don't think that a tax collector should be singling out individual groups, whether it's the Tea Party or Progress Texas in my hometown, which is very much not a Tea Party organization and which received a questionnaire originally also. What is the history of this nefarious conspiracy, very bizarre conspiracy that Republicans keep referring to? Well, it began with the testimony of a career Republican Inspector General of the Internal Revenue Service. And that witness came before us in May of last year. The hearing began with a number of very inflammatory charges about corruption and picking winners and losers and the IRS being rotten to the core, all statements that were made at the opening of the hearing. And as I questioned that career Republican Inspector General, he denied every one of the inflammatory charges that had been made. He did not find in his investigation the facts to back up the mythology that was asserted at that time. As a result of that hearing and a subsequent hearing in June of last year, and the letter to which Mr. McDermott referred, the Internal Revenue Service, not too much too soon, but too little too late, finally got around to the job of proposing some regulations. I think there are great deficiencies in those regulations, and so do all the groups to which Mr. Neal referred. All of the good government groups that have been trying to open up and expose these secret, undisclosed contributions have expressed concern about certain aspects of the Internal Revenue rulemaking. I believe that where the Internal Revenue Service got off was a long time ago when it defined exclusively social welfare organizations under the statute to be primarily, and it changed the original intent of a statute of decades and began to apply this 51% rule. I think the IRS should treat social welfare organizations as just that, social welfare, and not engaged in politics. And there are many comments that have been advanced. We're told some 23,000 that could result in a change in that rule. The only purpose of today's legislation, other than to promote this mythology, is to ensure that in the next election we have the same kind of secret, undisclosed campaign contributions through third parties that pollute our political process and distort it. This legislation is opposed by a wide range of groups that want to see change in the regulation and the way IRS functions, but don't want to postpone dealing with the problem of secret money in elections. It's legislation that should be rejected as having no basis in fact or in the prior investigations of this committee, and will not accomplish the purpose that it states it's designed to accomplish, and will have a negative effect on the operation of our democracy. I yield back.